Yo, what is up, guys? This is Commerce64. How you guys doing today? I'm back with another video. And for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the day I met Catherine Sutherland and Nakia Brees at Fan Expo Boston 2026 this year. So Catherine Sutherland and Nakia Brees, for those of you probably don't know who they are, they're most famously well known for being on Power Rangers, playing Catherine Hilden, I think whatever her last name is, can't pronounce her last name, Catherine Hilden and Tanya something. I can't pronounce her last names, but they're known for playing Catherine, or Cat as short, Catherine and Tanya respectively. Catherine Sutherland, she got on Power Rangers near the end of season 3. She replaced Amy Jo Johnson, who played Kimberly, but Amy Jo Johnson wanted to leave the show at that time, and they replaced her. And they were pretty much setting Catherine up to be the next Pink Ranger as her replacement. And Catherine, she was like evil at first, but she was mind controlled. Honestly, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think the camera's focused. It's focused now. It's kind of hard to say. Sorry, but the camera tends not to focus sometimes, so I'm really sorry. But yeah, Catherine Sutherland, they were, Catherine, they were setting her up to be the Pink Ranger, replacing Amy Jo Johnson, because Amy Jo Johnson wanted to lead the show at that time. So at the time, Catherine, she was evil at first, but she was actually mind controlled, put on the Rita spell, and then the spell broke, and then she came over to the side of good, and Kimberly chose her to be her replacement as new Pink Ranger. And Cat did a really good job as Pink Ranger at first, and then they transitioned to Zeo, and then she became Zeo Ranger 1 Pink, and then Power Rangers Turbo, she became the first Pink Turbo Ranger. And I thought Cat was a pretty great character. She was an Australian. I think she's the first ever Australian Pink Ranger from Australian to be a Ranger. And I think the second will be Xander from Mystic Force, and they're like, I don't know any others. Yeah, Chase from Down Charge. I think he was New Zealand. Yeah. So yeah, Catherine Sutherland. So yeah, Cat was pretty much a great character. She did have some great fine episodes dedicated to herself. The memorable ones are pretty much the Zeo episode where her teaming up with that dog, and the Turbo episode, Wait and See, when she's insecure about her weight and stuff like that. And so I guess she didn't really technically have that many episodes dedicated to her, honestly, but they were fine for the most part, And then also as for Tanya, Tanya, she came in near the end of Mighty Morphin, replacing Aisa. Aisa sent Tanya to go back in her place because Power Rangers in season 3 they returned back to kids, and they had to go to some parts of the world, their heritage, to get the Zeo Crystal, and then Aisa met Tanya, and Aisa sent Tanya back in her place, and so she could stay at Africa. I think that's where it was, and Tanya was in her place. So Tanya never got to become Mighty Morphin Yellow, but she became Zeo when it transitioned to Zeo. She became Zeo Ranger 2 Yellow, and in Turbo, she became the first Yellow Turbo Ranger. Oh yeah. Yep. And Karen Ashley, too bad for her, because Mighty Morphin Yellow is the only Ranger she ever played, and some people got mad at her because I think I hear that some people get mad at her because she plays herself as Mighty Morphin Yellow, but that's pretty much the only Ranger role she ever played. I mean, sure, she's not the first. Tweet Trang is, may she rest in peace. But Karen Ashley, she never got to, she never played any other Ranger color. I mean, if she did stay on the show, she would have probably played Zeo Ranger 2 Yellow and be the first Yellow Turbo Ranger, and we would never got Tanya, we would never got Nakia and Breeze. And so, so Mighty Morphin Yellow's pretty much the only role she's ever played, basically. And Tanya, not for Tanya, she's she's a fine character. I think she's a great character. I really like her attitude. She's pretty cool. She does seem to have one that black girl like persona, and she does, but she also is a bit kind-hearted and just like Catherine, just like Cat, and Cat and Tanya are pretty much like really great friends, and Tanya was staying with Cat, while during Power of the Zeo, Cat and Tanya were really great friends, and I think they're one of the best Ranger duos ever. And with Tanya, I don't think she had that many episodes to herself. Like in Zeo, she did have a boyfriend, and there were some episodes with her with him. Turbo, I didn't think she didn't really have that many episodes dedicated to her. Well, there was that canceled episode that was going to feature them going up against a monster called the Rock and Roach. And that episode, like, Tanya was going to be like, she was hosting a radio show, and she was like selling tickets and stuff like that. I forgot too much of the detail of what the episode was about, but it was just one of those scrap episodes, So yeah, Cat and Tanya are pretty great characters, and I think they're a great duo, indeed. And honestly, I think their actresses are a great duo in general, because then they're so close friends to this day, which is pretty cool. Because in certain cases, with celebrities, some people, celebrities, they're people, actors, people in general, when they're work together on a project, whether it be a TV show, a movie, or commercial, or any type of project, or short film, or whatever, there are cases where, they don't particularly really get along, and they don't really like each other, I mean, some people sometimes some people get along, some people don't. But I do kind of think it's, but I do think it's kind of nice that there are some that actually do keep in touch with each other and still remain friends. Because sometimes, sure, for the most part, a lot of times they're just pretty much just co-workers and just they work together and then they go to separate ways and they don't really particularly see each other again. But it is kind of cool that there are some people, like especially in Power Rangers, there are some Power Ranger actors that still keep in touch with each other and still friends to this day, despite the fact that they worked together like many years ago. And that's the same thing with Nakia Burris and Catherine Sterling. They remain close. I bet those two probably formed a very close bond. While filming the show. And that's pretty cool. And they're the best of friends, which is pretty cool. And it's kind of cool that they're so friends to this day. They're so doing stuff together. They both have a YouTube channel called Power Rangers Power Playback, which is awesome, by the way. They talk about a lot of Power Ranger stuff. They do fun videos, and also, once in a while they'll do live streams where they have a special guest on the show. And they have special guests from many people who work on Power Rangers. Last week they had Johnny Young Boss and Jason Narvi, who played Adam and Skull respectively on Power Rangers. And also Johnny Young Boss, I met him at Fan Expo. That was actually the same day I met Nakia and Catherine. But Johnny Young Boss, this is the second time I actually met him. I first met him back in Anime Boston 2019. And unfortunately, he doesn't really remember. He said he doesn't remember anything anything before 2020. I guess it's understandable because sometimes your memories don't seem to work well as much as they used to. Sometimes you do tend to forget certain things from your past, and that happens with a lot of people. But yeah, meeting him again was pretty cool. He was a pretty cool dude. I might do a video talking about meeting Johnny Young Boss again. Now, and thanks to him, he was the one that informed me that Catherine and Nakia were also there as well. Now, I did see one of their live streams that before that they were going to be at Fan Expo Boston. I wasn't sure about it. I think I wasn't sure about it. I bet they probably were, but I wasn't sure I was going to meet them. But thanks to him, he pretty much said to me, hey, Nakia and Catherine are here as well, and they had like a booth like pretty much down like all the way down close to where he was, not too close where he was, but all the way down, because Johnny on Boss was at the section, where they signed autographs, the booth tables were signed autographs, and Catherine and Nakia were at a table where they were selling some stuff, and right close to them was also Michael Cuban, who played Lucas Time Force Blue, the Blue Time Force Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force, and meeting him was pretty cool. Now, getting into meeting Catherine and Nakia. Catherine and Nakia, so I first met them, I first met Catherine first. I waited in line. I got to meet her. I got to shake her hand, and I have to say she's a really nice person. She was lovely and she was sweet. Such a sweetheart. It was really nice to meet her. And she's an Australian, and to be honest, I think she's the first ever Australian that I ever met. Honestly, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I ever met any other Australian. Honestly, I probably have, maybe at a convention or somewhere, but I don't want to remember. But I think Catherine Sullivan has to be by far the first ever Australian that I ever met. And honestly, meeting her was just so nice. She was just so sweet. She was such a sweetheart, And when I talked to her, she asked me, "Hey, are you from Boston?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, my camera's zooming in and out again, not focusing in and out again. Sorry about that." When she asked, "Am I from Boston?" I said, "Yeah, I am." I said, "I think I said I lived in Boston my whole life," and I think I asked her what it's like being Australian, but I say it's kind of cool that she's not Australian. I say she's a lovely woman, and I think I contacted her on Instagram a couple times. I didn't even comment on some of her posts, But she was a really nice person. And fun thing that I asked her like, would it be cool if she got to work with other Australians like Hugh Jackman, Chris Hemsworth, Margot Robbie, Millie Alcroft, and a couple others. And she also mentioned Nicole Kidman. Yeah. It would be cool to see all those Australians that I mentioned, all her and all those Australians that I mentioned, do some kind of Australian themed movie because I have a fondness for Australians. I really love their accents. Good on them, mate, and all that stuff. I have a fondness for their culture. My first exposure to Australia was the 2003 movie Kangaroo Jack, which I plan to do a review on, and I'll probably do a review on pretty soon because one of the movie from my childhood that I used to love, but now knowing that it's not as good as I thought I was, But I was a kid back then, There are some movies that I adore a lot when I was a kid that are actually not really good movies. I really like to be good movies, but I still like them for nostalgic purposes. That's just me. So I have a fondness for Australians. Margot Robbie, she's freaking gorgeous, and Millie Alcroft, I'm sorry to get into her, well, mainly because her role in Supergirl, which I don't think is that bad of a movie, honestly. Has many problems, and it could have been better, but I think it's a fine movie. It's like a mid, passable at best, And I might do a video talk about why that movie's not as bad as many people are saying, And also other Australians, I'm also a fan of Arlene Rice. I can't pronounce her name right. She played Benny Brett in the Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man films, and she was in the 2024 Mean Girls movie, and she's in an upcoming movie called Finding Emily, which is releasing tomorrow. Tomorrow, the same day as Coyote vs. Acne and Legend of the White Dragon. So tomorrow, August 28th, which is National Power Rangers Day. So not only is tomorrow National Power Rangers Day, but also a triple feature as we got Coyote vs. Acne, Finding Emily, and Legend of the White Dragon, which is finally being released after so long. So yeah, we got a triple feature tomorrow. So you guys better be on the lookout for that. So yeah, I have a real fondness for Australians, particularly Australian women. And Catherine Sullivan. Another reason why I do also another reason why I like her is because she's blonde, and I have a fondness for blonde hair women. Blonde hair white woman. I always have since I was a kid. I've always had a crush on blondes. I also hope that one day I get to be in a relationship with a blonde woman. That'd be cool. There are a lot of great blondes, beautiful blondes out there. Catherine Sutherland being one of them, and some of the people I mentioned. Margot Robbie, Millie Alcock, um, Lee Rice. I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name wrong. I think she's Australian. No, I think she's a blonde. I could be wrong. Yeah, I think she is. And I actually made some videos about like Knuckles rates blonde hair people. People. blonde, blonde hair, female blonde hair celebrity crushes, and female blonde hair fictional crushes. And I made those last year back in 2025, and this year I made Knuckles rates blonde hair female YouTubers. YouTubers. Yep, and I made it this year. You know, you can check all three. So you can check all three of those videos out on my channel. You know, in terms of other Australians, Eric Bana, he's cool. Russell Crowe, I think he's Australian. And there are some Power Ranger actors who are Australian. Richard, can't pronounce his last name, Berta, or Richard, who plays Xander on Power Rangers Mystic Force, and he was on Power Rangers Playback. There's also Angie Diaz, who played Vita from Mystic Force. She was on Power Rangers Power Playback. And I got to ask her a question, I sent her a super chat and I asked her a question, who's her favorite superhero? And she says she likes Starfire from Teen Titans. And she said she was going to go with Harley Quinn, but she didn't want to go with Harley Quinn because she wanted to separate from that negative energy. Yeah, Harley Quinn, I guess she's a cool character, but even she has kind of been a bit wacky. Even though DC has kind of somewhat set her up to be the next Deadpool, their version of Deadpool in DC, Does she fit the mold as Deadpool? A little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so back with Catherine Sutherland, she, meeting her was pretty nice, and she looks freaking gorgeous. She does look gorgeous even to this day, as she did when she used to did the show, I think she's in her 40s or 50s or whatever, but she still still looks gorgeous. She still looks like a beautiful woman. And props for her, I wish the best for her in her career, and standing for Nakia, who we're going to get into right now. And then after meeting Catherine Sutherland, I met Nakia Breeze. I got to shake her hand, and I got to talk to her for a bit, and I asked her, hey, do you keep in touch with any actors not from Power Rangers, from the other shows like VR Troopers, Master Rider, Big Bad Beady Boys, and such? She says now she does. She said Brad Hawkins. Because VR Troopers, Master Rider, and Beetleborgs, those shows were basically all filmed next to Power Rangers. VR Troopers and Beetleborgs I know, and Master Rider I assume because Master Rider was also made by Saban, and Mystic Nakatono, that was probably from the next show as Power Rangers. And Blake Foster, there's a picture of him with the Hill Horse Monsters from Big Bad Beetleborgs. A picture. But it kind of baffles me that, Saban never decided to make a crossover episode with Power Rangers and Beetleborgs. We did got that Power Rangers Turbo and Beetleborgs Metallics comic crossover, and I remember looking at the comic book years ago when I was a kid at some kind of store, but it would have been cool to see that they actually made it an actual episode. Whether an episode on Power Rangers Turbo or an episode on Power Rangers Beetleborgs Metallics. Beetleborgs. And Power Rangers or Beetleborgs, I mean, they easily could have done it, Sure, I guess it would have required a lot of original footage, but, I don't think it would have cost too much. And Saban was a non-union show, so they couldn't film their own original footage. So, I guess they understand more why they passed on that idea. It's sorry that my nose is a bit stuffy. I think I'm coming down with a cold, so. Yeah, so Nakia, she was pretty nice, Talking to her was pretty cool, She was pretty friendly, was very nice. I'm busy smoke detector, She was really nice. She was such a sweetheart, just like Catherine, And I do buy the vibe that these two are really close, are really best friends, They seem like to have a tight bond. And I think those two have a bond that are probably going to last a lifetime, And I think they should stay best friends forever because they're just so good together, and they make a great team. I think they make a great duo, And, Nakia, And I actually talked to her. Hey, would it be cool if Brad Hawkins was the Gold Ranger? And she said he voiced the Gold Ranger. But yeah, I actually meant like, what if Brad Hawkins got to play a character that transforms into the Gold Ranger? Like, what if Brad Hawkins became a character? Like, I don't know. What if they brought the character of Ryan Steele from VR Troopers, and he became the Zeo Gold Ranger? Gold Ranger, like Ryan Steele. What if Ryan Steele morphed into the Zeo Gold Ranger? That would have been awesome. Awesome. And that would have connected the worlds together. And like Sarah Bowen, she, who played Caitlin Starr on VR Troopers, she was in the Power Rangers Zeo 3-parter. There's no business like snow, where Tommy gets a breakup letter from Kimberly. Kimberly moves on to find someone else, and Tommy gets heartbroken. And Kat tries to cheer him up, and Sarah Bowen, her character Heather, comes to town, and Catherine tries to set them up, but things didn't go too well, and Sarah Bowen and Heather pretty much leaves later on. Yeah, that's kind of funny because I think her name was Heather. And speaking of Heather, because also Big Bad Beetleborgs, which also came up at the same time as Power Rangers Zeo, also had a character named Heather, who was the love interest and Drew's crush, So it's kind of funny, But I do think Sarah Bowen, it would have been interesting if they brought her character in as Caitlin Starr. Let's say Caitlin Starr comes to Angel Grove for like an interview, like she's doing like some kind of job thing. She goes to Angel Grove for work, interview something like, let's say like her boss. I forgot the guy's name, the one funny guy who works with, if he sends Caitlin to go to Angel Grove to do a story on something, and maybe they can have like her like transform to a VR Trooper and team up with Zeo Rangers to help them out. That would at least like connected the two shows together. Because a Power Rangers and VR Troopers crossover, I think I heard that it was planned to happen. It was kicked around, but nothing came of it, which is a bummer. They could have easily done that. They could have done something where Ryan, Caitlin, and JP, they come to Angel Grove and they're participating in a karate tournament, and then they end up meeting the Power Rangers, and something happens and they end up teaming up. They found out that Tommy and them, depending on whatever season it was, like season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or season 2, or Power Rangers Zeo. They found out that Tommy and them are the Power Rangers, and Tommy and them found out that Ryan and them are the VR Troopers. Ryan, Caitlin, JB, and the VR Troopers. Yeah. So 2 VR Troopers actors, were based on Power Rangers in a way. Brad Hawkins, who played Ryan Steele, voiced the character, and Sarah Bowen, who played Caitlin Starr, came in and played a character. Yeah, so both of them were based on Power Rangers Zeo, basically. Unfortunately, for Michael Bacon, who played JB, he wasn't on Power Rangers Zeo or Power Rangers, And the cast of VR Troopers, it seems like, it's kind of cool to see them reunite, The original trio is reuniting, which is cool. And also, speaking of trio, Big Bad Beetleborgs, the original cast of Big Bad Beetleborgs, they're reuniting together, and they're going to be at Power Morphicon. And they took a picture together on social media, announcing their arrival at Power Morphicon. So it's kind of good. Another original trio back together, which is all ultimately cool. History is like the old gang gets back together, the old band gets back together. Really cool. And Power Morphicon coming up in a couple days. I started tomorrow, I think. National Power Rangers Day. Tomorrow, and a lot of Power Rangers actors throughout every season is going to be there. Even some for Super Sentai. It's going to be a really fun day. Props for anyone going to Power Morphicon. I hope you guys all enjoy it. To all the special guests. Well, I mean, okay, so now Hector David Jr., who played the Green Samurai Ranger, he's going to be there. But Hector David Jr., who played Mike, the Green Samurai Ranger from Power Rangers Samurai, one of the most god awful seasons. He apparently did something back in 2024 that where he puts an old man, and he got arrested for that. And there was something where he was year prior back in 2023 for domestic abuse something. So, but I'm not gonna get too much into that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm fine with him coming because after what he did, but Maybe he's probably apologized since then or something, and he's probably changed. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, and I think Nakia and Catherine are probably going to be at Power Morphicon. Yeah, I bet definitely for sure, and they're probably going to be like doing what they did at Fan Expo. At the same table. Yeah, me, Nakia Breeze, and Catherine Chapman was pretty great. You know, and I definitely tell. Like I said, I can tell these two are really close friends. And they have a close bond with each other. Because sometimes in movies and TV shows, or commercials or a project or something, when two people are paired up together, sometimes they can either get along or they can either not like each other, like can't say each other, just don't like each other's guts and want nothing to do with each other. Because we see this a lot of times because the infamous feud between Austin St. John and Jason David Frank, you know, you know, but it seems that they did start to somewhat patch things up, but they still were kind of at each other later on, years later. Now, Austin St. John, he did feel bad when Jason David Frank passed away and did a video about it. It's kind of nice. Now, I know some people have lost respect for Austin St. John because that tax fraud thing that he was involved with back in during COVID, and all. I think it was in 2022. Yeah, but and he also did some things. He also talked about making shirts like quotes from Hitler and stuff like that and other stuff. Yeah, but sometimes guys, over the years people change. There are some people who we used to like and all, and we used to admire them, look up to them, but then years later they begin to change and become totally different people. That's what happens. We all change and become totally different people. I've actually met people who I used to be friends with, but then some of them kind of changed and became totally different people, and then part of me did start to lose somewhat respect for them, and seeing how they changed and became totally different people. It happens. But and aside from that, there have been other celebrity feuds, now we're hearing that Zendaya and Bella Thorne didn't really get along on the set of Shake It Up, which is kind of odd. I thought those two were very close while making that show, but I guess sometimes we tend to believe certain things, but we found out that it's actually not true. Like Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar. We asked, it was revealed that they didn't really get along on set of the first I Know What You Did Last Summer. They did not like each other at all. But when we saw them in interviews and behind the scenes, they seemed to truly get along pretty well. But I guess I don't know if that was staged or something. But maybe they probably did get along at first, but then later on not really, or maybe they're just pretending because sometimes we may think that people get along, but sometimes behind the scenes that doesn't always seem to be the case. And there have been many other cases of people not getting along. I think there was things they were saying that Drake and Josh didn't really get along. Sort of Drake and Josh, Drake Bell and Josh Peck. I think they did get along, but Josh says that they're not really friends. Yeah, this is understandable because because they haven't worked together in years since then. And I think Drake Bell Drake Bell made a big deal because he wasn't invited to Josh Peck's wedding. Yeah, but sometimes these things happen. Sometimes there are people and there are actors, people who you used to work with years ago that you don't end up seeing anymore. Either that person moves away or does other projects or such. Part of me does kind of wonder, if certain celebrities, do they still keep in touch with other celebrities who they're close celebrities who they used to work with? But that doesn't seem to always be the case. And that's all. Another thing that I kind of wonder is that, co-workers, do people still keep in touch with old co-workers they used to work with? Or do they still keep in touch with people who they knew back in high school, or middle school, or even elementary school, or even college? But sometimes, it's not always the case. Some people do keep in touch with some people, and some people don't, Sometimes they just grow apart and move on, and, they move on, and then there comes that point where eventually they meet new people, eventually, this person who you used to be friends with, whether he was a person back in high school, college, or a co-worker of yours, you meet these people, and then they event, and then hey, I'm back. Sorry about that. And unfortunately, I'm turning the camera a little side this way because at the original spot, the sun was shining now, so like that's kind of starting to get in the way, a little bit right here. So so I moved the camera right here. Yeah. Yeah. So and I got more space on the SD card now. You know. And so, like I said, it's kind of like what I was trying to, this person like that person like someone from high school or high schools or college or coworker, former coworker or friend of yours, that person ends up like moving away. You don't see that person again, and that person ends up meeting new people and such. Or you probably still keep in touch with that person. You probably still have that person's number, but you guys don't really talk anymore. Or that might come to a point where that person doesn't really care about you anymore. You don't care about that person. You guys don't care about each other. You guys just kind of just move on from each other, just went your own separate ways, and or maybe you guys might see each other again and reunite, something like that. And I guess like with some Power Rangers actors, there are some Power Rangers actors that have worked with each other before, and they don't see each other ever again. They haven't seen each other like years later, in years, and then Power Morphicon or whatever convention, Ranger Stop, whatever, they end up meeting again, and they start reuniting, reconnecting, and they start to like exchange phone numbers, and then they start to keep in touch, and then start to hang out more often, like Christopher Cameron Lee and Jason Nemo, who played Andros and Zane respectively in Power Rangers in Space, they still keep in touch, and they still do stuff to this day. Excuse me, bless you myself. They still do stuff to this day, I think. And also Philip, who played Merrick, the Luna Wolf Ranger for Power Rangers Wild Force, and Jake, I think that's his name, Jake, who played Danny Wild Force. I think they keep in touch. They hang out with each other. Philip mentioned in the live stream that he didn't wrap some event, they got kicked out, something like that, but he doesn't go into detail about that. I don't know too much about that. So yeah, there are some Power Rangers actors that still keep in touch and do stuff together. Yeah, I see myself on. I think I'm coming out with a cold. I mentioned earlier. So, yeah, and that's kind of good that, Nakia Burrish and Catherine Sherman are so close to this day, And they're really great friends, And, Catherine Sherman, she's actually one of the prettiest female blondes, Power Rangers blondes out in the franchise so far. Her, Sally Martin, who plays Tori from Ninja Storm, Alyssa, who plays Taylor from Wild Force, yeah. And a couple others like Alyssa, I forgot who plays Sid from SPD. And she was also on Power Rangers Playback. And a couple others, so yeah. Catherine Sutherland, Alyssa, who plays, I think that's the name who plays Taylor from Wild Force. Sally Martin. Sally Martin was one of my celebrity crushes when I was a kid. Yeah. But I think I didn't dislike Sally Martin because she was blonde, but it also because I think she had a crush on her. But, her being blonde, yeah. And Sally Martin, she still looks cute. And also like Alyssa, who plays Sid from SPD, was it Alyssa? Can't pronounce her name. Allison or something. There's also the actress that plays Leela in Jungle Favorite. And Mystic Force. She's pretty cute. And some that that never got to play actual Rangers, but a couple of blondes instead. Rose McGyver plays someone from RPM. She's gorgeous blonde. Brittany, who plays Emily from Samurai, she's fine, I guess. Ciara Hanna, who plays GF from Megaforce, she's fine. And there have been other blondes. So, Jacqueline, who plays Zoe from Beast Morphers, she's, I would say, fine. She's fine. Yes, she does look cute with glasses on, And she was born the same year as in the year 2000, She's actually the first ever Power Rangers actor to be born in the year 2000. To be born in the century. She's born the same year as Miller Ackrock, And it also as well as my little brother. And a couple of people were born in the year 2000, 2000, the year of the century, yeah. So yeah, Catherine Sutherland is among many beautiful blondes in Power Rangers franchise. Now there's also Allison, who played Dana from Life Rescue, but I think she's mostly a redhead, honestly. A redhead just like Amy Adams, who actually got the role, who originally got the role as Dana from Life Rescue, but she ended up turning on the role because her agent told her it will ruin her career. Yeah. And it's kind of cool that Catherine Sherwood and Nakia Breeze are so very close to this day. And I think they should probably stay that way. And, meeting them was like very fantastic. Now here's something I want to mention. Now this isn't like racing or anything, but it's like a common thing that I have kind of noticed over the years. In real life, but also in media, like TV shows, movies, commercials, or something or whatever. But it's like where you see there's a blonde hair white girl who has a black girl as like her BFF or her best friend. You know. Yeah, that's something we do see a lot in media. We see that a lot in TV shows, movies. Whether it be live action or cartoon or animated or whatever. Where this is a white female character, blonde white female character who has a black girl as like her best friend. We see that a lot of times. Like Jimmy Neutron with Sydney and Libby. Sydney Vortex and Libby. I forgot Libby's last name. They're pretty tight. There's also like Sabrina and Chloe from Sabrina, the animated series, Sabrina Teenage Witch, the animated series. There's also like I would say Paige and Hazel from Degrassi. And also the actress that plays Hazel. She was in the movie with Hilary Duff, Cadet Kelly, where she played Hilary Duff's best friend. Well, her best friend when she attends the academy. Because before her it was someone else. So yeah, there are some cases where there's a white blonde female character who has a black girl as her best friend, and we do see that in the real world. Now also there was also the 2012 Dread movie that had the lead female character who's a blonde. She had a black woman that was her best friend, but not anymore because what happened. I think she actually killed her husband. Movie. Yeah. Oh yeah, I do. I remember. Yeah, so there are cases where there is a blonde female who has a black woman as her best friend. It's not race or anything. I just kind of find it fascinating, and I do kind of like that dynamic. And sure, there are some white girls that do have black girls as their best friends, and some that are not blondes. Like there are some brunettes that have black girls as their best friends, their BFF. And some of these cases, some of these black girls have kind of served as like the psychic to the white character, like the psychic, and that's actually been the case in other TV shows, like for example, like Hey Arnold, and like even like the opposite gender, like a white blonde male character has a black kid has like his best friend, like case upon like Harold and Gerald from Hey Arnold, and there have been a couple other cases, but I've always been mostly fond of like the blonde haired white girl that has the black girl that's like her best friend, I'm sorry you hear that. That's my mom, something like that. And I do kind of think that's kind of cool that I think Nakia and Catherine are a great example of that. And yeah, there was also Princess and the Frog, a movie that's going to be played tomorrow at the park near my house, Yeah, Princess and the Frog, I forgot their names, but the blonde hair, what, that's like her best friend, And they were just like, Princess, no, actually I forgot her name. I'm so sorry. She's the main character. And also, I also forgot to mention there's Virgil and Richie from Static Shock. Now the only difference is Virgil, he's the main character, and Richie's the psychic. All right, guys, I'm back. I'm sorry about Mom walked in, so and now it looks like there won't be any more interruptions for the rest of the video right here. All right. So yeah, back what I was saying, the whole white woman, white girl, blonde hair, white girl, blonde hair, white woman, blonde hair, white female, blonde, who has a black girl, black woman, black female as her best friend, BFF, You know, and also in the opposite gender. So it's kind of like in most cases those black characters have always had most kind of started as like the sidekick. And also, there's also Unfabulous with Maris and Cranberry. Unfabulous with Emma Roberts that aired on Nickelodeon back in the mid to late 2000s. Yeah, and at the end of those two don't become friends anymore. Well, I guess Karen Cranberry kind of just is no longer evil. Like Maris and Cranberry are sort of like somewhat villains, as like rivals to Addie Singer, and then later on, the movie, the perfect ending or whatever it was called, when they're on that ship thingy, Cranberry turns over a new leaf and becomes friends with Addie, and then, well, at least doesn't become like a mean girl like Maris. But yeah, and there have been many others. Many other white characters that black character has like the best friend. Even like Danny was kind of like that to JT and Degrassi, and then later on he does kind of somewhat become his own character in a way. And also Hazel from Degrassi, I kind of feel like they did her character dirty. I'm thinking about doing a video where I'll talk about why Hazel was done dirty in other Degrassi videos. Like talk about Jimmy Brooks, why he's a great character, and why Degrassi is such a great show in general. Sorry if I went a little bit off topic, but that's just kind of the vibe I kind of get. Like seeing like Catherine Sullivan and Nakia Brees, like they kind of really embody that kind of trend that we kind of do see like in real life in media about So and like and sure, yeah, it's not just only blonde or white woman that has a black girl. Sometimes the white girl could be like a brunette or black hair, which we rarely see from white women, or even a redhead. But it mostly seems to be blondes or brunettes that have a black girl, her BFF. Yeah, but I've always been a fan of that concept right there, that friendship right there. That friendship dynamic right there. And Catherine Sullivan and Nakia Brees, now they have a YouTube channel. I mentioned this earlier. It's called Power Playback. It's really fun. It's really cool. I'm gonna leave a link to that description below. The link description below to the channel, and like they do a lot of live streams, do a lot of videos. Live streams. They'll have people all come on there, even Power Rangers guest stars. Even Power Rangers actors that we probably would never see like on YouTube or anything, or like Sean C.W. Johnson, who played Carter Grayson from Lightspeed Rescue. Power Rangers Power Playback is pretty cool, pretty awesome though. They've had a lot of Power Rangers actors on there. The actress who plays I forgot the name of the actress who plays Lily on Power Rangers Jungle Fury. She was on there. I think I missed that live stream when I think I was seen it. There have been other live streams like the guy who played is Merrick from Wild Force, another Beast themed season. He was on there. I think I missed that live stream too. So there were a couple live streams that they did that had Power Rangers guest stars on that I missed, and there were some that I actually did attend, and I did send super chats. The actress who played Viper was on one of them, and I mentioned how Viper is the first human-looking female Power Ranger villain, but someone corrected me saying that someone else was. Yeah, I think I said something like that. I must have got it wrong or something. And I have sent super chats before. Sean C.W. Johnson, I just sent 2 super chats. One about were you aware that Amy Adams got the role as the Pink Lightspeed Ranger, and also asking about Safe Harbor, which also had Christopher Campbell Lee from Power Rangers in Space, and that's how he pretty much got the role on Power Rangers, because he knew Christopher through that show, and then I think he was offered to be Power Rangers, like his agent got them to audition for Lightspeed Rescue. So yeah, Power Rangers Power Playback is pretty fun, And one of the common things in their YouTube channel, whenever there's a super chat, when they do live streams and when there's a super chat, they're like this: super chat, raise them up high. Yeah. I think that's one of their trends, you know. Now I did hear some people that I think I heard like when YouTube say he's not a fan of their YouTube channel, I think it's kind of cringe. Like they're older people and they're doing this. They talk about Power Rangers and stuff like that. But you know, guys, well, and some people might find their channel cringe. But you know, guys, Power Rangers is basically what made their career. You know, for them and other Power Ranger actors. You know, and they're just embracing that. And also the actor Philip who plays Merrick from All Force, he has a YouTube channel, and I think he did a video reaction to Red Ranger becomes an adventure in another world. You know, Christopher Cameron Lee, he has a YouTube channel. But I don't think he uploads on it anymore. He did used to do like questions, and there were times where I asked a couple questions, and you know, I don't think he does just uploads on YouTube anymore, unfortunately, or maybe he has a new channel or something. I don't know. But you know, he seems like a cool guy on his YouTube channel, you know, and he's also been on Power Rangers Power Playback along with other Power Ranger actors, you know. Many Power Ranger actors have YouTube channels. Brendan Mejia, who played Tyler from Dino Charge, you know, I'm subscribed to him, you know. And some of these channels, I'll leave a link to all the channels down below, you know. Power Ranger actors who have YouTube channels. I'll leave a link to each of the channels down below. You know, so yeah, I figured I'd make this video because since that tomorrow's National Power Rangers Day, I figured, why not? Now, I'll let you guys know something. Recently, I did film another version of this video many days ago, but unfortunately, I'll be honest, I wasn't too happy with it, honestly, because I kind of felt like I was going off topic a little far, a little off topic, you know, especially in the early part of the video, you know. I kind of felt like, you know, I could have done, you know, some things better. Better talk more about, you know, meeting Catherine and Nakia and stuff like that. That's like the main topic. I might release that videos like I think I might release that video as like maybe like for members only to show, you know, the original version, you know. Maybe the original version, I guess it was probably fine, but I do kind of think I missed some things and I kind of just was just all over the place. I guess kind of like how it feels like right here, I'm all over the place. And I apologize, guys, you know. Sometimes, you know, things just kind of happen. And also back with the white woman and blonde or white woman and black girl women best friends, you know, there have been other times we see that in a lot of movies and TV shows, everything. I think Clueless has them. No, not Clueless, but yeah, Clueless does have it, but also I mean, the Scary Movie, Anna Faris and Regina Hall, their characters in the Scary Movie franchises, as well as what others, Legally Blonde, I think. Well, the new Legally Blonde reboot, you know, and many other stuff out there, you know. Yeah, just as like I said, I'm just kind of a fan of that dynamic, just kind of like it. And you know, just regardless of skin color, we all can be friends, you know, and we're all treated like family with each other. Pretty cool. And I guess that's the case with, you know, most Power Ranger actors, at least some of them, you know. Sure, there are some Power Ranger actors that probably don't like each other and don't want to be around each other, you know. Brendan J. McLaurin and Emma Lahana, they used to date, you know, who plays Jack from SPD and Kara from Down Thunder, respectively. They used to date, but I heard their relationship ended badly and they want nothing to do with each other. Understandable, you know. And Emma Lahana, I think she's pregnant. I think she gave birth. I don't know. But I heard she was pregnant like 2 years ago or something. But congrats to her, you know. So yeah, you know, meeting Nakia and Nakia Reese and Catherine Sutherland was pretty nice. Catherine and Nakia are both great people. I wish the best for them in their YouTube channel and also their career if they decide to go back into acting. You know, I know there was a movie that, you know, they did called The Order. I think it was that featured a lot of Power Ranger actors. There were a lot of other Power Ranger actors. They were trying to do a GoFundMe to like get funding for that, a Kickstarter for that, but unfortunately it didn't. Nothing came of it, which is kind of a shame. That probably would have been something. I think there was a fight scene between Nakia and Catherine. That would have been cool to see. Can't go wrong with a good old cat fight, you know. So Catherine Sutherland and Nakia Reese, you know, if you guys are watching this, It was nice meeting you guys. You guys were wonderful people. I would like to meet you guys again. And who knows, maybe I can come on your YouTube channel sometime if you'll be willing to have me and fine with it. And you know, maybe I might decide to be one of their channel members because they got a lot of channel members, you know. But also, you know, I gotta figure out my money situation first before I start to commit to all that because, you know, you guys are by far one of the best Power Ranger actors and Power Ranger YouTubers out there, you know. I wish the best of luck for you guys. Maybe I'll be a channel member someday for you guys. So, yeah, I had a fun experience meeting those guys and also meeting Johnny, your boss, again, the second time. You know, he doesn't remember the first time we met, last time we met at Anime Boston back in 2019. And I also met Michael Kubin, who plays the Blue Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force, you know. So, yeah. Well, that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you guys liked this. Sorry if I went all over the place and this and that, but you know, hope you guys enjoyed the video. The original version, maybe I might upload it to show you guys, you know. But yeah. But yeah, that's it for this video. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And more videos coming out in the future. This is Comrade64. Sign out. Peace out, guys. Super chat. Raise them up high. Take it easy, guys.